Good morning. Welcome to Just for Today, a time of eclectic reading, sharing of perspectives, meditation, and prayer. I'm Reverend Rafe Ellis, Senior Minister and Spiritual Leader of the newly joined Columbia and Greater Baltimore Centers for Spiritual Living Communities. Today is July 25th. And so this morning I'm reading from The Spiritual Law of Cause and Effect, The Inner Mechanics of Mind, Law, and Divine Intelligence. And so I'm reading from page 51, where it states this: God, in the philosophy of religious science, is not anthropomorphic. God is not a deity seated upon a throne dispensing judgment or withholding blessings. God is not a superhuman personality operating from without. Instead, God is the principle of life itself, the formless, boundless, eternal, and everywhere present. It is the source and the substance of all that is. It is spirit, consciousness, intelligence, and love. It is the universal mind through which all thought moves and from which all form emerges. And it goes on, and I'll end with this paragraph, to say that Holmes refers to this infinite presence as, quote, the thing itself, end quote. Not to reduce it, but to remove it from the constraints of preconditioned thinking. By calling it, quote, thing, end quote, he sidesteps centuries of religious baggage and invites us to move the divine, and invites us to meet the divine anew. This thing itself is the creative energy back of all form. It is that which knows itself, expresses itself, and sustains itself in and through everything. I think one of our challenges in this spiritual journey is coming to terms with our idea, our understanding, our relationship, first with the Word God, because the Word God itself carries a ton of generational history and, for some of us, trauma. The Word God has been used to create all sorts of concepts, from a loving God to a punishing God, to a benevolent God to a tyrant God. And so it can be very confusing when we use that word. I know in 12-step recovery, God is often referred to as good orderly direction. And my understanding is the original Hebrew that in Genesis chapter 1 verse 1, in the King James Version of the Bible, where it says, in the beginning God created, is less than correct. And that it has been translated as that. And that the original Hebrew text actually said, in beginning created God. And in beginning, my understanding, is a reference to the infinite. And so one of the things that we're invited to consider is, what is our concept of God? What is your concept of God? In beginning created God opened up a lot of doors for me personally. It invited me to explore that God is a concept that humanity created in our journey to understand this infinite everything that we recognize because we are an expression of it, and that's the self-knowingness. And it can all get very circular. It can all get very, for me, it's that tangled hierarchy thing again, right? Like that statement, no, really, honestly, I'm a liar. Well, there's no way to unravel that, right? And so I don't know that there's a way to unravel the word God from all that we have made it mean. What I can share with you is that when I make it personal, when I explore beyond what I was taught, when I let go of the guilt, shame, and blame, and when I let go of the fear that is embedded in me, it kept me from exploring my own understanding and relationship with this thing called life, this thing called God, this thing called my breath, this thing called consciousness. It was the fear that kept me from the exploration. And every once in a while, it's so deep in the human psyche, every once in a while it still pops up. And today I'm able to just chuckle and move right through it. But I really encourage you to explore your idea of God. And then consider letting that go. Because whatever it is, it's bigger than any of our idea of it. But we can't get there. I don't think we can get there without first exploring our ideas. So maybe explore your idea of God and then recognize that whatever it is so much more than our human brain can even begin to experience and begin to understand. And yet, it is so fully present in us that we recognize it in ourselves, we recognize it in nature, we recognize it in one another. And I think that's what religious science, spirituality invites us to do, is not to ignore planet Earth, but to see beyond the conditions, to see, and that's why it references back of, right? To see what's really happening. And that it is life expressing, it is God expressing. And sometimes when we're expressing in separation, it doesn't look very godly and it doesn't feel very good. And that's part of the journey. It's part of the journey that I personally struggle with. Maybe you do too. And maybe the struggle is okay. I think what's most important is that we stay in curiosity, that we keep turning over the rocks of our own understanding to know more, and not to know more about something outside of ourselves, but to know more about consciousness itself, what we are. So that's the invitation that I have for you today. Stay curious, be humble, be open, and just explore life and how you relate to it and what it means to you. So with that, I'm going to move us into our time of meditation and contemplation. I forgot to pull up my timer, so let me do that. There we go. I will adjust my camera. There we go. It adjusted itself. Okay, so we're going to go into our 5-minute meditation. And I invite you to just be present with whatever is for the next 5 minutes. Here we go. this moment, with this breath, I recognize there is only one. One life, one joy, one peace, one power, one presence, one God, one creation, one substance that is the source of all, by whatever name we call it. It is absolute reality that is beyond a name. It is beyond the limitation of a definition. It simply is. It is everywhere present, self-knowing, recognizing itself. And so in this moment, as I recognize it, it is the thing within me that is recognizing itself. Recognizing that I am that informed. That I am a divine, individualized expression of it, purposeful, intentional. A desire within it to know and experience itself as me, as my life, that is its life, inseparable. And what is true of me is true of all creation. And so everything in form is this one infinite everything, desiring to experience itself as each particular form. And so I speak my word, claiming and affirming that each is awakening to the beautiful, mystical reality that they are the divine in form. That creation itself wants to experience itself as each individualized expression, as the brilliance, as the unique expression. No two intended to be alike. I speak my word, claiming and affirming a release of all of the conditioned negative thought, belief processes attached to the meaning and the name of God. That they are released, and in their place is the understanding and experience of this being of wholeness, this being of goodness, this being of transformation. This creative process born within every expression of it. To use, to experience life. I celebrate. I celebrate that the word spoken is the word fulfilled. That the doer within this creative process, the soul of creation, the soul of the created, the law of principle, has already made it so. That bridge between mind and form, the doer of creation, has already acted and made it so. So I can celebrate the completion of the word, believing before seeing, anchoring in that activity of faith that knows, that trusts, that creation is always responding yes to its creation. So it is done, clearly, perfectly, exactly as it is believed. It is met and accomplished. So I can let go. I can let go of any thoughts of doubt and worry. I can let go of any thoughts of fear or any need to control. I can let go in the faith that it is already complete. And so I do. Ashe. Shalom. Aho. Amin. Amen. And so it is. Namaste.